Welcome back to the studio for our second session with EY, Ekonomernas Dagar's main partner. Where, for those of you who missed the session this morning, we'll go through a bit about what EY does, but we're also going to have a bit more focus on EY's culture and how they're working with diversity. So with me here today, I have Lisa Henning. Welcome so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you. Um, why don't you start us off with what's your role at EY? What do you do?
Yes, so within EY, we have a lot of different areas. We have both assurance and auditing. We have tax, where you met Helena Norén this morning.
Exactly.
We have strategy and transactions. And then finally, we have consulting, which is where I'm working. And consulting in itself also consists of a lot of different areas. I'm a part of a department called People Advisory Services, where we focus on the people agenda. So everything from HR transformations to system implementations and how to enable the people both to use the new systems and how to wanting to use them in the very best way. It could be change management, everything from a new one company buying another company and how to make sure that the people want to go to the new company and really work as a part of the new one. Diversity and inclusion is also one that we will talk more about, and how we work in the future as well. So it's a really broad area, but within the consulting practice.
Yeah, no, I think it's great that you outline a bit about what kind of different areas that entails, because I'm sure a lot of students, when they hear people advisory services, they might be thinking HR and recruitment and working with employees, but
Yeah,
that
and
would
I
be
think initially that was the more or less the only
yeah,
focus, or the main focus at least. But since the years pass, you can really see that the people agenda is getting more and more focused, because more and more people do understand that it's such a critical part that our employees are happy and want to be there and really are thriving. So that makes our work as well expand. And now we have a lot of different focus areas. So yeah, everything that has to do with people, we take care of.
absolutely. And I know that from pretty much every company we've heard from today, we've talked a lot about how they've been working during this pandemic and how it's been working from home, if they've been working from home and those kind of things. We already got the scoop of how EY works from this morning. But how has your line of work, been working with people and employment happiness, changed during this pandemic?
I would say that the pandemic has stressed even more the importance of people and the difficulties in creating an environment, um, or creating belonging when you're not in the same place.
Yeah,
Usually we have those physical meetings and people tend to, then it's rather easy to create a culture. You see each other, you can connect, the place all around you, the office really helps as well. But being separated in different ways, people begin to understand that if we would like our people to be happy, which everyone wants, of
of course.
course, we have to put extra focus on this, and we have to look behind the physical meetings. How do we make sure that to include everyone? How do we make sure that everyone really feel belonged? So I think it has stressed the focus, and for us, that has been even more things to do, of course, because of that. But it's an interesting area to work around in these special times as well.
Absolutely. What do you think are some of the main challenges that companies are facing in these times within your line of service?
I think in general, the technical part I think has worked rather well. We've been rather used to um, through viral medias and so on before, because we usually, some people are in the office, some at home, some with clients and so. What has been more difficult are the lack of social events and the lack of physical meetings. So it's not just that we support our clients how to create belonging and how to create inclusive environments virtually. It's also something that we have to work with, and I think that's where we have faced the biggest challenges as well.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into a lot about how EY works with diversity and inclusion, and how you work with your clients within inclusion and diversity. But do you feel that something has changed there during the pandemic? Have you seen new challenges within inclusion, or have some groups been harder hit? Uh,
I think from an inclusive and diversity perspective, the everyone has, of course, been affected in one way or another. The pandemic has really changed all of our lives. However, I think it's important to stress that the impact is not the same for each and everyone. Both if we look at the societal level, but also within companies, there are groups that have been more affected negatively by the pandemic, and often those are the minority groups, both in society but also in companies. People with diverse backgrounds that do not have the same opportunities, and that's also where we can see the highest amount of stress levels now due to the pandemic and anxiety and so it has really been different. People have been affected differently, and we can also see in indexes and so that the inclusion has, or the diversity has been going back during the crisis, which is really sad to see. A lot of work has been done to get as equal as we possibly can, and now in just a year we have gone back. So I think that's extremely important to focus on now, not just that it's nice words, but that we really make sure in the future to restart the economy with inclusion in focus.
Yep.
And with diverse teams in focus. The other week, there was a big event, a 2 weeks event called She Conference, and one of the participants was Erna Solberg, the Prime Minister of Norway. And I think she put it really nicely that when we now restart the economy again, we cannot only focus on the biggest corporations with great ideas, for example, environmental sustainability. That's really important, but we also have to focus on companies that are diverse workforce, diverse leadership groups, diverse steering groups, female-led companies as well, and make sure that we have a mix of it. Because now we have the best opportunity of all. We have to restart everything. Why not doing it with a long-term focus?
Exactly.
So
see the pandemic as an opportunity to restart within these areas.
yes, so it has happened a lot of bad things regarding inclusion to it, but we also have a lot of opportunities then. So
that sums it up nicely. So now we've covered the problems within the area, and also some of the potential opportunities going forward.
Yeah.
But how is EY working with these things within the company to start off with?
Yeah. I would say both on a natural level, so Swedish level, but also global level, diversity and inclusion is really something that we prioritize and something that we think is extremely important, and that we work with both internally but also externally. So if we, with your question, begin internally then.
Let's start internally.
I would say that, first of all, it's about creating awareness. It's about offering courses, both basic ones, but also for those of us who want to deep dive. We have a package called EY Batch, where you really, it's a package of courses where you really can deep dive, for example, in the subject. But one of the most, I think, important parts is focusing on the culture and enabling people to work together. I know that Helena this morning talked about teams, that we really focus on teams at EY, and we truly do. We have something called highest performing teams, where we try to create as strong teams as possible, and then trust is fundamental, to have trustful and inclusive environments for those teams, because that's really where the magic happens, where everyone can provide their opinions and create something fantastic together. So I would say most focus is within inclusion is put on creating environments that enables it.
That's so interesting. So speaking about these high-performing teams that you try to put together and really putting some focus in on the makeup of these teams, what are some aspects you look at there?
I think in general it's both for us at EY, but in general as well, what is really important to create that trust is both transparency, extremely important, that everyone receives the same information in the same way, and that you're really transparent of both what's happening and what's not happening. So communication there, of course, is an important part, but also authenticity.
Authenticity.
Thank you. Well, that's a difficult word.
It is. It is.
And being able to be vulnerable, I think that's really important, and it's getting more and more important, especially in these times when things change from one day to another to a third. A leader could impossibly have all the answers, know everything. So I think by being vulnerable and really showing that it's together that we can make things happen, that's also when you create that trust and possibility to enhance each and everyone's capacities.
Yeah. And these courses that you talked about that,
Yeah.
that focus on inclusivity and diversity,
Yeah.
are I guess you have a mix of both, but are they mainly mandatory courses that are included in the introduction to EY, or are they optional ones that you can?
It's both.
Yeah.
I would say. For example, that course package that I talked about, the EY badge, that's a voluntary course package that you can take. But then also in our introduction and so on, we put a lot of focus on both purpose and high-performing teams and so. So it comes within the mandatory courses as well.
Yeah.
And I think our purpose from EY is building a better working world, and then of course inclusion is fundamental in that. So I would say it comes in both ways.
Yeah. Moving on then, because building a better working world doesn't just end with solving these issues within EY in the internal part, but when you work externally, what are some aspects that you take into account there, and what kind of projects do you work with?
Yeah. Yeah, we're big, but we're not the whole world yet. So
one day maybe.
One day. No, but it's I think. We cover really the whole spectrum of diversity and inclusion, and can help our clients within that as well. Everything from setting targets and a vision and mission around it, to begin to assess how does it look like today, begin to activate and see how do we have to put the roadmap in order to reach the goals, and then to implement and of course sustain that work. So it's a really broad range of activities, but what is common between all of them is the structural focus, and by that I mean that it's a focus on organizational level and not on individuals, because even though it's really great to change each and every individual, if that person works in an environment that is not inclusive or diversity friendly, it won't make any difference. So focusing, I would say our main focus, independent of where we are in that circle or range of activities, is to look at both formal and informal processes. So that could be, for example, by the formal ones, how does the recruitment look like? Is that really unbiased? Or how does the promotion look like? And seeing if we're offering the same opportunities for each and everyone. And then, even though if we have 100% inclusive and unbiased formal processes, we work in environments where people, individuals, create organizations with different backgrounds, different ideas, different wills and interpretations. So the unbiased processes might get biased because of informal processes.
Exactly.
So and those are a lot more difficult to both identify, but also to work with, because they are intangible in another way. So that could, for example, be norms. Who is taking the notes? Who is the first one speaking in a meeting? Because that usually colors the whole meeting. Yep. Who is expected to advance quicker than the rest? How do we speak about different people? How much time do we invest in speaking about different? So it's a lot of this intangible, informal things that do matter. So focusing on both formal and informal, and focusing on the overall, so the organizational level, I would say, is how we do it on a very broad level. I could talk about this for ages.
I can tell, and I'm sure it would be super interesting. But I know one thing that I do want to talk to you about. Yes. That is last summer, in the summer of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, you launched the SHE Index at EY.
Yes.
Tell me more about what is the SHE Index and what does it aim to do?
It's I always get really engaged when I hear this, because I think it's a really good initiative. Yeah. It started some years ago in Norway. By the SHE community, which is led by a woman called Heidi in Norway. And then we have co-created the She Index together with them in Norway. And as you said, last year in the middle of the pandemic, where everyone's focus was
On
all
other
around,
things.
yes, we launched this index. And it's an equality index focused on gender equality, and it differs a bit from other indexes that exists in the sense that it does not only consider quantitative aspects such as representation, but also qualitative aspects. So it's a survey-based index. So the organizations answer a set amount of questions within 6 different areas.
And who receives this survey? What organizations are surveyed?
So it's open for all different companies with at least 50 employees, and it's free to fill in. And when they answer this, it's most part of the score is based on representation, around 60%. And the reason for that, and the reason for why other indexes also measures that, is because our structures that we have, who is in minority and majority, really do affect how the rest is functioning as well. If it's usually the majorities that sets the norm, that says what's accepted and not, and that will by itself result in higher confidence among these ones. So it is important. But we also see that it's a lot of other things that are important in order to sustain that. You cannot only rely on that, oh, we have 50-50 split, now we're fine. Because diversity without inclusion, it doesn't lead anywhere.
Work, no.
So the other 40% is divided into different areas. It could be, for example, the targets within the company regarding diversity, how the gender pay split looks like, how the talent and recruitment looks like. So it takes other aspects into account, and then results in an index that that organizations can use both to screen their business, and then looking at, okay, with this score, how do we benchmark against other competitors, and also benchmark against ourselves in other countries. Now we have in Sweden, Norway. We will launch it in Denmark and Finland next year, and then going global as well. And also from year to year, of course. And then finally, it's a great foundation to begin to improve also. So I think it's really, really great initiatives that both help understanding, but also beginning to improve the equality.
It helps organizations understand where their flaws might be, or where they're doing well to some extent, and where they might need.
And I think that's important that you say it's not just about finding where you have challenges. It's also about understanding, okay, here we do really good, because that is, if not even more important, to understand it, to continue that.
Exactly.
We often hear that, okay, we have to improve this and we have to do this and this, but it's equally important to continue doing the very, very good things if we would like to reach the best results. So,
and I'm sure also realize when you have been doing something correctly. I mean, if you've been working hard on improving maybe inclusion or diversity, you want to see that that's giving results.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm sure this is a topic that really engages a lot of students. I know that many of the people I studied with really would have loved to work with these questions, and you work with these things today. What's your advice, if you can go back in time for a bit, to those students that have a drive for these things?
Yeah. First of all, I would say really embrace that drive, and take it with you. There's a lot of companies that really focus on these questions and really value it, but there also still exist a lot of companies and a lot of people that do not really grasp the importance of it, and that still thinks that it's important, but this and this and this. Yeah. We have this to prioritize, but really to keep that drive and the belief in that this will change, and we have to work for it to change. Yeah. I think that's important first. And then to begin to look at your surroundings and begin to reflect. Diversity inclusion is not something that you just can learn and then you have it and you walk away. It's something that you learn to get the awareness, but then the real work begins. You have to begin to reflect and discuss and see. So I would say really reflect upon it, embrace the drive, and be careful when you choose your employer. It's everyone needs this focus, but not everyone will prioritize it. Prioritize
It's
it.
another hard word. No, but I think that's important for them to take with them. How do you know? How can you check if you're when you're screening potential employers? Now they obviously know that EY works with these questions, and at EY you'll have the opportunity to work with other companies to improve them. But how do you screen potential employers?
I think that's a really good question, and it
Yeah,
is difficult.
yeah,
We could especially see before the pandemic that more and more companies began to talk about diversity, inclusion, environmental sustainability, and so on as something really, really important for them. And then the pandemic hit, and their focus was somewhere completely different. And that's also why we can see that, for example, diversity has been going down during the pandemic because it has not been the main focus. But while for other companies, they see it as an integrated part. So I think not just seeing, okay, they say inclusion in their webpage, I go for that company, because a lot of companies do, but to really try to get the possibility to discuss these topics with employers, I think like this kind of fair is really a great example where you can interact with companies and really ask questions that make you understand if this is just buzzwords or if it's really something that means something for the company. So try all possibilities that you have, both these fairs, go for company visits. I think that was one of my major recommendations,
yeah.
or that I love to do, because you get a feeling like this stomach feeling in
You get a
another
different
way.
vibe. Yeah.
Exactly, than if you just read about it in the homepage. So
No, I hopefully from this discussion, the viewers at home can realize that all the different opportunities that you can have at EY, and that it's not just an auditing firm, but there are also other possibilities, but also learn about the culture that EY has to offer. We're just rounding off this interview, but I want to give you the opportunity. Is there any last pieces of advice you want to give the students at home?
no, we just it's difficult. I think I said most of it regarding
Yeah.
regarding the embracing of diversity, but oh, I truly, truly believe in this, and like do not uh, stop about this because you encounter some barriers or so, but really focus on it. You will get there,
Yeah.
but we have to do it together because we are stronger together.
I can truly feel the passion you have for this topic here, and I hope the people at home can feel that as well. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming and talking to us. We're really happy to have EY as a main sponsor, and thank you once again for doing this session with us.
Thank you so much.
Now we'll go to a short break, and you'll hear more from Lisa in a second with Alex.